Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week, I'm joined by the wonderful Alex Husner from Casago. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to coming on the show for a long time and just excited to dive into the topics today.
Yeah, 100%. Look, you're someone that I've been following for quite a while. I know that you and the wonderful Annie set up a podcast a while ago, and that's just gone, I guess, stratospheric. So if anyone's listening, check it out, Annie and Alex. And I was on your podcast a little while ago, which I really enjoyed. And what I like about you, and we've had quite a few interactions now, is that you don't just talk the talk, but you walk the walk. And I found your insights and your comments around marketing to be one of the best that I've heard within the industry.
Well, thank you. That's a wonderful compliment. I appreciate that.
Look, and yeah, I really do appreciate your insights. I appreciate your comments. So I'm super pumped to have you on the show today. And you were so open and willing to talk to us. And one of the topics which we come back to quite a lot on the show is direct bookings. Mm-hmm. And it's something that's going to make a huge difference for a lot of people now, a huge difference for a lot of people in the future. But I think that what's great about today is that we're going to get your insights and your views from your previous role, from what you're doing over at Casago, and what we can do to strengthen our book direct strategy. But before we get into it, I would love you to introduce yourself and let people know how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little bit about me. I am from New Hampshire originally. I moved to Myrtle Beach following college back in 2007. And not being from the area, didn't know anybody here. Myrtle Beach is very much a very large tourism-based destination. A lot of family business, a lot of people that have been here in the area for a very long time. It was difficult to break into the industry here. I started in advertising, which is what my major was, and worked for a couple of different advertising agencies before I landed at Condo World, which was a business that became the first career, which was probably half of my lifetime career, I would say. I was there for 13 years. Started as their director of marketing in 2009, at which point we had 150 condos under management. And by the time that I left last October, we were at about 500, and with 5,000 units that we managed on a sales and marketing program throughout the Southeast. So really just had an incredible career there and grew with the company, grew with the destination. I've been very involved with the destination marketing organizations of our area. Myrtle Beach is the fourth largest funded tourism destination in the country, next to New York, LA, and Orlando. And a lot of that is because of the efforts of our Chamber of Commerce Convention Visitors Bureau that do a lot of work to ensure that we have a ton of money and plenty of money to make sure that we market this area for our guests. And I think there's like 30,000 rooms that are in the 60 miles of accommodations that we have here. So have grown up in this area in business, had wonderful influences here. And it was about a year ago now, that I made the switch to move to Casago, which I am Chief Marketing Officer for the company now. Been there about a year, and it's been an incredible experience, a very different experience than what I had in my previous role. But, doing similar things, I would say, but more at a national level versus Condo World was more a regional level approach. And really focused right now mostly on business development and just growing Casago within the markets on the East Coast, as that's kind of like my base and where I have most of my connections. But it's been a wonderful journey so far, and I love this industry. It's kept me hooked. It's really hard to get out of it. The people are amazing, and getting to spend time with you on podcasts and some of the other shows is just, this is fun for me. So I appreciate being here.
It is a lot of fun, huh? Because you get to connect with other people from the other side of the world. It's 8 o'clock in the morning for me. I think it's about 4 o'clock for you in the afternoon.
Oh, 6:30,
yeah,
but
oh, is it?
somewhere around there. Yeah.
So, but yeah, you managed to build friendships and real connections, right? Like we look forward to seeing each other at VRMA. We look forward to hanging out and having a drink and having a chat about the different challenges and struggles and successes that we've actually had.
Yeah.
Alex, tell me, what draws you to it? Is it the industry? Is it hospitality? Is it the marketing side? Why stay in this vertical, in this industry? Because, I mean, you've been in it for quite a long time, since 2009. And you spent the most of your career in there with the one job and the one employer. So obviously there was something that was driving you to stay motivated and excited. And I think you're more excited than ever about something that's drawing you towards us.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, the days are long, but the years are fast, I think is probably the best quote to summarize what any of us do. That it's crazy to think that I've been, was in that career for 13 years and here for another 1 year, even though it feels like it was yesterday. But I think that, the industry as a whole, the relationships are super important. I somehow got the travel bug very early on. My first job, actually while I was still in college, was for a company called studentcity.com, which was a company that booked spring break trips. And I was the campus manager for Radford University. And I remember it was like the best thing ever that I sold enough spring break trips that my spring break to Cancun was paid for. So any of the arguments that my dad had about not wanting me to go, I was like, at least it's paid for. You can't argue on that side. Might be worried about my safety, but it's just funny. It's funny looking back. I mean, that is kind of ironic that was, the first job that I had. And now looking back on, what we do for a living, whether you're directly working with guests or doing marketing, I mean, you're selling vacations, and it's not the worst thing to have to sell. It's much more exciting than trying to sell insurance or things that are a little bit more dry. But I think the main thing that has kept me in this industry is a connection to something, bigger than myself, bigger than even what the industry is. I think honestly, it could be insurance. I mean, if you have the right mentors, if you have the right people around you and you're working towards something that you feel like you're connected to, honestly, I think you probably could work in any industry. We're very lucky that it's an industry that is a fun thing to market, but I've just been very blessed to work with people that have kept me motivated and wanting to be on the team and just be part of something that, we don't know what tomorrow is, but we know that we're building something incredible.
Yeah, and look, I love that background, and ultimately, when you were younger, you wanted to go and have experiences, and you were selling experiences to other people, and then you found that you had a knack for it. You're like, hold on a second, people are based. You hadn't even been on one of these trips, and you're selling the trip with a aspiration to have some sort of an experience, and you were sharing that connection with the people you were selling to as well. And I think that's something that's incredibly important when we talk about hospitality, when we talk about accommodation, and when we talk about Book Direct as well. We're not trying to sell a room, we're trying to sell an experience, and then within that experience there's a huge amount which is tied into it, which is the whole brand, which kind of pulls it all together, which I've kind of borrowed from you a little bit, so sorry, but I love the idea that we're doing this because of the experiences that it creates. I got involved in this particular segment because I used to be in restaurants, which I love. I love hospitality has always been, I loved it since the very start. Technology has been very important. But I started off in the restaurant space, and now I'm into the accommodation space because I know that we can really bring something of value to people and change their lives, the way they see the world and the way they see things. Mm-hmm. I'm going to move on to the Book Direct because I know that people on probably listening and going, when are they going to get onto the Book Direct stuff? So, but maybe before we do that, can you give us a quick rundown as to Casago, how it works and what it is, to give us a bit more context as to where it kind of fits into the Book Direct conversation?
Sure. So Casago is a property management business, has been in business for 23 years now. Started in Rocky Point, Mexico. Steve Schwab, our CEO, was co-founder of Streamline Software, that wasn't on the first day that they did that, but that was after a few years of, building this business down in Mexico and realizing he needed something more than a pen and paper and some of the really old tech that was around at the time to be able to manage these condos on the beach. And as he grew and really just applied his learnings, he was a former Army Ranger, very strong on culture within a company and values and how you instill those in your employees and how that really just changes the trajectory of a company. Built this into an incredible business down in Mexico and realized they were at a point where he felt that they could scale this into other markets, and so went into a few other markets in Mexico and quickly realized that when you're the new guy going into a market, what you've done in another market doesn't matter. You have to have the connections. You have to know the nuances of the market. And what he ended up doing from those learnings was partnering with local operators that they became owners in Casago, and that's how the franchise model started. And as he at the time expanded outside of Mexico into the U.S. and Scottsdale and Sedona, Park City, Santa Barbara, into these other markets, took on that same mindset of let's find the best operators in a market, let's partner together and utilize the economies of scale and the best practices of this larger company that has access and resources to better pricing, better services, better support than a small company would have on their own. And it's been really interesting to see because it's kind of the opposite of like a Vacasa model where Vacasa, nothing against Vacasa, but or any of the private equity based companies, when they go into a market, they are buying a company and in most cases taking out the local leadership. That's why the company was so successful in the first place. And our model is completely different, that we do not buy these businesses, we don't own these businesses. We partner exclusively with one partner per market and then deploy this incredible tech stack that we have and the support stack and the community that makes them feel like and makes them be part of something much larger than they are on their own. And it's been an incredible journey. Like I said, I've just been part of it this past year, but we've grown exponentially. I think in 2022 we added 19 markets. We're on pace to add another 20 this year. So really seeing a lot of expansive growth. And as far as the book direct movement goes, our ambition as Casago is to help our partners generate more revenue, book more reservations, operate more profitably. So that looks like a lot of different things. That's book direct is in its own entity a way of making sure that you have control over your business. And like we always talk about on these shows, Bart, don't build your house on someone else's land. Our goal at Casago is to make Casago the best known consumer facing vacation rental brand that's out there. And I really believe we have a unique and possible opportunity to make that happen because of the way that we're authentically doing it through this franchise model, that this isn't just, massive amounts of private equity money coming in and deploying advertising strategies. We're growing organically through the reach of these incredible operators in their markets, through their networks, their families and friends, on top of the marketing that we're doing and on top of the best connections that we have to these channels and the marketing we're doing on Casago.com. I mean, every time that we bring on a new market, we deploy content, video, photographers to completely dissect the market and figure out the best points of interest, the best things that people need to know about the area. And it really just provides an incredible way for a traveler to see the destination, that it's not just, we all know it's not just about the room that they're staying in or the condo or the home. It's about what they're going for in that experience. So we're really working to make sure we have the content to back that up. We do a lot of different SEO initiatives. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in the site to build up our domain authority so that as we bring on new markets, they immediately start ranking very high within their areas, which just creates another exclusive, or not another, something they don't have, an exclusive way for them to have a channel that their competitors can't be on, because everybody can be on Vrbo and Airbnb, but only our local partner can be on Casago.com. So we're doing things of that nature that kind of make it exclusive, and it's working really well.
So I think one of the keys here that I'm kind of dissecting in the middle of it all is that content is king, and quality is queen. That was in one of my posts yesterday. Because one of the things I've been reading about a fair amount is SEO. And when we think about SEO, it goes across platforms. So search engine optimization, but we'd also be thinking about optimizing the way that we write our content and provide our content to rank higher on YouTube, for example, or even if we're doing a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post, we want to make sure that our content is coming to the top. And the way that Google used to work is that it was an index, right? And it would rank websites by how many people are referring to the original source of information and say, well, based on that, the number of links going to that source, we're going to give that result as number one. Then they figured out, hold on a second, it's not the number of links that we need to look at, it's the quality of the links that we need to look at. Yep. So if the BBC is linking to you, or a huge, a provider that's got a high authority, then they'll rank that higher. But they're saying that that doesn't matter as much anymore, and that it's all about the quality of the content. That's really the most overriding factor, one of the number one thing that we must look at. And I find it really interesting for you to say, as part of your strategy, you go into a new market, and the first thing you do is you look at all the content. Walk me through how that looks and how that works and what people can glean from it.
Yeah, so I think, our strategy right now is deploying both sides of that. I think the link building is still very important. I think the content is very important. It's really hard, to be honest. Like SEO has always been something that is, semi-gray area in a lot of ways, that we kind of trace what we hear we follow what we hear as the best practice, but then things are changing quite often. And I mean, I've being in this business since 2009, I remember the days of, it used to be that you could just have, if you wanted to rank for Myrtle Beach condo rentals, you could just have that in white text on a page with white background multiple times, and that would get your site to rank. Obviously, we know that's considered black hat SEO, and that was shut down. But that was pretty prevalent back in that era, and a lot of different updates and things that Google has done to prevent people from scamming the system. I think from the content perspective, content is big because you have to think about it from a user perspective too, that whenever we write content, in my previous role or in this role, it's always based on user intent. So looking at what people are most actively searching for in a destination. So here in the Myrtle Beach area, for example, people are always searching for, best restaurants in Myrtle Beach, or best times of year to visit, or different topics along that nature. And that's scalable to a certain extent, that a lot of these topics are similar from market to market. I think the best of type articles, they work really, really well. We focus on, like I said, the points of interest. So really building up the site as a source of authority within a destination. If you look at any of the destination marketing organizations, Chamber of Commerce sites, they do the same thing. It's our benefit, or what we're able to do, because we are combining so many different markets together. We're able to do it at a global scale, that we've got a ton of content writers that are writing this content in right now 55 plus destinations. So we're truly a content machine. But I think for the takeaway for smaller operators would be, if you're in one market or a couple markets, look at what are the main things that people are searching for about your destination, and write content about that. Whether it's seasonal based, whether it's festival based, whether it's attractions, restaurants, tips and tricks, like things to do on a rainy day in Myrtle Beach. That's a huge search. And I know in my previous role, that was an article that we got crazy traffic on. But here's the thing too, there's some things you get traffic on that don't convert at all, because somebody's searching for that, they're already in Myrtle Beach, and they're going to Ripley's and Legends and these different attractions that have nothing to do with actually booking an accommodation. So you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, Google does see that there are a lot of people searching for that, and your site's getting a lot of traffic. People are staying the time spent on the page, actually reading the content Embedding videos, of course, is important too. And just making it something that's unique that they won't just go see the exact same or a different version of on another page.
Yeah, I love it. So you're basically building up authority within your site's authority by providing good quality content, so that then it helps your site rank where they are looking to actually book accommodation and that sort of thing.
Yep, absolutely.
Um, and on that writing content, and this is something that I've had differing views on as time has gone on, because generally blogs were really hot back in the day. Huge source of traffic, and everyone was building a blog, and people make millions of dollars writing blogs, which just doesn't, it's not the same anymore. It's more of a content producing, it's articles, that sort of thing. If we talk just at a basic level on a website, would you put it under a banner of a blog, or would you call it articles, or would you call it news? How would you put the content on, let's say, Casago's website, or on that new location? Do you have it on the main page, the top 10 things to do? How are you distributing that content?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think there's not really a right or wrong answer to that. I think a lot of it comes down to how your website's built. I mean, what structurally makes sense for you and what your goals for the site are. As far as our POI and POI's points of interest type content, that actually lives right on the Casago domain. We also do have a blog where our blog entries are on there. You know, we've got our site, depending on how your site is built, some articles are just easier to do or better to do as blogs. I would say that's kind of more like personal preference or company preference based on how you intend to use the information. There's some websites that have like subdomains for this content as well. I don't know that I can point to what is the magic recipe for it. I know that our site does rank really well. I know when I was at Condo World, we had a kind of more of a hybrid approach that all of our content was on the blog site, which was like a blog subdomain. So I don't think that there's really, and that's what makes SEO so complicated. There's not a black and white answer to which one is better, because there's so many other factors that you could or couldn't be doing that might be hurting or helping you. So it's one of those tough things to nail down. But I mean, our blog site, I mean, it's on casago.com. So I mean, it still resides within there. It's its own, directory, I guess you could say. But that's a tough question to answer, to be honest.
And one of the ones which I'm going to keep on asking everyone until I get the answers that I'm looking for, and it's one of the ones that we've been talking about an awful lot. I think that the content that you put up on your website, Google's going to find it through the back door, if that makes sense. So if someone's looking for something to do on a rainy day, they're going to Google it and they're going to get into the website in that way. My argument is that from all the testing that we've done, if you've got a blog button on your website, the likelihood of someone actually hitting it and really understanding what's in the blog is quite low. There might already be a lot of interest in staying with you, so it's useful, and that just helps to build a bit of trust and authority. So, okay, they really do know the area, they really do know what they're talking about. Okay, great, I'm going to book with them. So I think that can be very, very useful. But should it be called news? Should it be called articles? Should it be called things to do in the local area? And then, things to do, and then you've got all your blog posts that just kind of stream under there. The things to do seems to convert way better for us. And then people write their blog content within there.
I agree on that. And I think one thing that's important to note too, and I think you nailed it, is that people aren't just having blog in your navigation. I don't know that really motivates anybody to go check out what it is. The sweet spot is actually leveraging that content and putting it in the right place at the right time. And there's some really cool AI stuff that, kind of focuses in on this now, but based on who the visitor is, if they've been on your website, cooking them, stuff like that. But for the most part, it's about embedding that content within parts of the site that the content is going to help drive them towards a booking. And really that's the main thing. I mean, sounds quite simple, but I think people get kind of confused on this sometimes. If you're building a book direct strategy, you want it to be as easy as possible to book a reservation on your site. So what is the clear path from A to B that has all the trust verification signals, has content that makes people realize, wow, there's a lot going on in this area. This looks like fun, but doesn't divert them too much. I mean, you don't want to have squirrels everywhere. You got to keep somebody on a pretty narrow path, and get them into that booking funnel. And then once you get them into the booking funnel, if they don't book, because we all know there's only about, industry average is 1% of guests book on your website. I've seen more, I've seen less. But what do you do with that other average of 99% to get them back in?
Tell me about that. That 1%, is it 1% of all traffic that visits your website will book direct, or is it 1%? Is that what you mean?
That's kind of industry standards for a travel website. Is 1% of traffic will convert to a booking.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Sorry. Mm-hmm. I was going to say. I thought you meant that over all the bookings, only 1% are direct. I was like, hold on a second, we're at 30 or 40.
Oh no. Yeah. No. That's yeah. We definitely want more than 1%. But I've seen some markets that some people that have none. Right. I mean, people that have started out with Airbnb in the last couple of years that they are just barely embarking on the book direct. I'm sure you talked to a lot of them. So.
Yeah, and look, this is the main thing, and I've never been anti-OTA. I'm like, just because I promote direct bookings, it's just another channel, and my message is you've got to do what's right for your business to help the business growth. I consult with a huge number of clients, and I remember that they came to me because of Book Direct. Like, Bart, we need to do Book Direct. We had a look at their whole tech stack. And what they're doing, and I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. You don't have this and this and this sorted. I'm like, you're not even on Booking.com. They're like, oh, is that any good? I'm like, Booking.com in Australia, huge. That's the first thing. Yeah. It's going to just bring bookings in and increase your revenue. Really? Yes, it will. And it's a lot easier to do than building up your own Book Direct strategy. It's like, okay, we'll do that one. And I'm like, okay, cool. And at the same time, we'll start working on the Book Direct strategy. Now they've got both going, and literally I bumped into them on the street the other day. They're like, oh my God, you've got no idea how many bookings we're getting now. I'm like, yeah, great, because it's part of a balanced strategy. It's just a channel. However, if we're talking about longevity of the business, and if we think about Casago and where you're going, you wouldn't be able to just leverage the OTAs forever, because one, it's going to cost you a lot of margin in the long run, and then two, in terms of scaling your business, you have so much value in terms of building up your customer database, loyalty to your brand, and everything like that. I'd like you to talk to this a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on, and that's definitely something that is vitally important for us, and a huge opportunity for us, to be honest. I think you want to leverage the OTAs, like you said. We're no longer, I feel, as an industry, we're not as we're not haters on OTAs. We all need to understand they serve a place in the ecosystem, and what that place is it's demand. I mean, Booking.com I can't even remember the statistic, but the amount of it's in the billions of dollars that they spend on advertising a year. Obviously, a local company and not even a Casago can spend anything to that extent. So leverage those channels, let them send you the bookings. But as the old adage goes, if they book on the OTA and then they book with you, and they go back and next year and book on the OTA, shame on you as a property management company. Like, you're not doing the right things to get them back, and the OTA is. And I mean, to be honest, Airbnb is definitely done the best job of that. I mean, they've made a very sticky experience that it's hard for us to get those guests off the platform and get them into our channel. But that doesn't mean it's not possible. And we just did a whole webinar or a series improvement on this within our West Coast Casago locations, where we looked at different areas of the business that we could improve in a few locations, and then now we're going to scale that out to all of them. And one of those was collecting OTA, mostly Airbnb email addresses. And what that's going to take is calling the guests, making that personal connection. If they don't check in with you in person, you have to reach out to them, get their email address. You've got their phone number, you can text them. And depending on the software that you have, you can make this actually pretty streamlined as a process. And I think that's one thing that we've really enabled our locations to be able to do. Once you start building up that database, now it's time to get them to rebook with you. And that's building the loyalty is them remembering something about your stay. And I mean, Airbnb doesn't normally, if ever, talk to guests, but people remember that they booked with Airbnb because they've made that experience so digitally friendly and easy. And I think there's ways that all of us can do that as well, that it's a mix of the human touch. And, like we always say, sometimes when something bad goes wrong, having that opportunity to fix the problem is the blessing in disguise of that guest. As long as you handle it correctly, they will definitely remember you and they will always come back to you. And that's something the hotel industry has known for a long time, that being able to fix a service problem actually ends up in a very good thing. So thinking about it from that mindset, not trying to create problems, but when you do have the opportunity to talk to the guest, how you make them feel. People remember not what you said, how you made them feel. That's the essence of, I think it's a Maya Angelou quote, but definitely the essence of a brand. And what we're trying to create at Casago from a book direct loyalty standpoint is, how do we get the guests back in next year? How do we leverage the strength of these 55 markets, knowing that guests don't always go to the same place every year, but we have partners in 55 and growing. Will be our goal is to be at 100 by 2025. That really starts to gain some steam. So as you're able to really remarket to these guests, to show them properties and areas that would be of interest to them based on where they've stayed, where they're from, really creates a pretty cool ecosystem. We also very much believe in your best referral for getting a reservation is going to be somebody else who has stayed with you. So people listen to their friends and their family. I mean, I do this all the time. If I'm going to a city or an area I don't know, I think about who I know who lives there, who has been there, and I ask them what their recommendations would be. I could also go to TripAdvisor, but if I know somebody, that's going to be who I would trust first. So, using that same mindset, when guests book on Casago, they are prompted to share their stay on Facebook and social media with their friends and family, which prompts them to their friends and family can redeem an offer for a future stay. Because, I mean, if you saw right now, Bart, that Alex booked a trip to Chicago, you probably aren't planning on booking a trip to Chicago. So it's not going to hit you at the right time, right place. But if there's an offer there that you can click to save for later, now when you're going to VRMA in a few months and you remember, and you're going to be kind of softly reminded of this offer, Alex showed me this offer, I'm going to check out the hotel or the condo that she stayed at. Now it's like the perfect time of when you would want to use that. So we do tactics like that kind of bring in friends and family and keep them engaged in a very non-promotional way. That's been really effective. And then once a guest checks out, we prompt them to share a photo and a story of their stay. This is also sent out to their friends and family. They're able to vote on the picture. It ends up being part of a photo contest where they can win a free future 3-night stay. So some really cool things on that side that I've employed in my previous role and had incredible success with. We grew at Condo World our database within a year of doing this by 200,000 emails. So huge growth. So really cool stuff, but it's fun. I mean, this is kind of the creative side of how you make that feedback loop really work for the company.
Yeah, and look, I think for a lot of people it's quite difficult because you need to think about what's going to be suitable within the scale of your business. If you're running 2 or 3 Airbnbs, that strategy might not be quite appropriate, but nevertheless, one should be collecting the database, collecting those emails, creating the loyalty, creating those referrals, creating the good experience and that brand consistency. All of those rules still come together no matter what your business size is. The only thing that's going to change is which parts you choose to lean into more and less, because some are going to be more effective for your business size and not. When you're smaller, you're more able to pick up the phone and talk to each individual guest. If you've got 50 properties under management, talking to all of them, unless you've got the dedicated resource to do it, can be really tricky. So it's about catering towards the right size of business.
Yeah, I agree, but I also will say I think it really to some extent, I mean, being able to pick up the phone and call every guest, I think that's where that becomes much harder when you're a scaled business that has multiple properties. But whether you're small or you are a larger company, as long as you have a website that is a consumer-facing site, you should be doing stuff like this, because that can be scaled whether you have 5 properties or 500. You want your friends and family to be referring, or not your friends and family, but your guests to be referring business back and forth from their friends and family, because that
Sure.
that takes the burden of advertising basically off your back. And we all know it can be very expensive for a company that is small to try and go to Google, whether you're doing SEO or PPC, which can be very costly, and bid on keywords that are, they might drive a lot of traffic, but if you don't have a bunch of properties, they're just not going to convert. So really leveraging the audiences and leveraging audiences on the OTAs and leveraging the audiences of your guests. That's really the sweet spot of, trying to make the advertising work for you versus you working for it.
All right. I've got a few questions for you. We're running out of time. I'm going to do them as quick fire, just
Okay.
to make life easier. PPC for a smaller host, worth it or not?
I would say yes, based on their inventory. So even if you're a smaller host, if you are in a building or like a complex that is searched often, but you have a few units in that complex, I would say yes. If the more niche that you can get, if you're smaller, the better in the terms that you're targeting. Obviously, going for Myrtle Beach condo rentals, if you're a company that has 5 properties, is not going to be the best strategy. But if you have very unique offering within Cherry Grove Beach, North Carolina, or Cherry Grove Beach, North Myrtle Beach, it's a beach area within North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, you could probably do well on that because it's a smaller subset of people. And if you have a handful of properties, you might appeal to one of them. I do think it's a harder thing for smaller operators, but I'm a firm believer in it. I've seen great success over the years, but it definitely takes somebody that really knows how to optimize it to make it effective.
Facebook, Google, or AdRoll?
One or the other, or am I saying yes to
Which one would you go for first?
Google meaning PPC?
Yes. So, or ads just in general. So if you're going to run Google ads, Facebook ads, or go to AdRoll.
I mean, without looking at the size of the business, I would say Google ads for sure. Because when as long as, like I said, you're using somebody in a company that knows how to target those keywords effectively and really looking at the ROI on it, that's super important. There's a lot of companies out there that if they just know how to run Google ads, they don't understand that as a rental management company, you're not making, if it's a $2,000 booking, you're not making $2,000. You're making your whatever your commission is on that. And that's a really important
and that
equation to have.
That leads me to the second quick fire question. Discounts or offers to incentivize people to book direct?
Discounts or offers?
And when I say
what
offers,
do you mean by the difference?
sorry, what I mean discount or added value. That's what I meant.
Oh, that's a really good question. Gosh, that's a really hard one to answer. I think it depends on the product and the market. I know in the Myrtle Beach market, discounts are really important. In higher end luxury markets, probably not as much. So I think you really have to know your product. You have to know your guest and understand what is important to them. One thing that I've done before is we've surveyed guests and asked them, what is important to you? Do you prefer to have a free night stay? Do you prefer to have a discount off your stay? Do you prefer gift certificates to local restaurants or attractions? Or what is it that is important to you? And then looking at that and figuring out, okay, this is where we can move the needle. But it has to go back to what is, as a company, for you to continue to do this, you have to look at your ROI. So how much of that is coming out of the company pocket? Is some of that being shared by the homeowner, some by the guest, and how that's marketed and also orchestrated?
Yeah, beautiful. Love it. Look, Alex, we're out of time. I'm already pushing my luck, so I want to say a huge thank you to coming on. And I kind of feel that we're scratching the surface of where we could go with this episode. This is actually probably a 2-hour chat, easy.
It is, yeah.
Before we can get into the real meat of some of the deeper level of conversation. So at VRMA, we can have a chat. I'm sure we'll both be super busy, but I'll see you there. As a thank you, is there anything that we can do for you as a community?
Well, no, thank you so much for having me on, and would love to continue the conversation. I agree there's a whole lot we could dive into on this, and Always love chatting with you as well. I have my own podcast with Annie. So our podcast is Alex and Annie. You can go to alexandanniepodcast.com or find us on any of the podcast networks that you listen to or on YouTube. We talk about all things related to vacation rentals, short-term rentals, mentorship, leadership, a lot of just different fun topics within business. So if you're thirsty for more podcast content, that's a good place to go. If you're interested in hearing more about Casago and our franchise model, would love to talk to you about that as well. You can go to casago.com/franchise or email me, alex@casago, casago.com, or find me on LinkedIn, Alex Husner, Husner, and would love to connect with anybody, any of your audience.
Beautiful. And look, I highly recommend you check out those different places, even if it's the podcast. I know that you've had unbelievable guests on there. In terms of having a look at what Casago are doing, then you're going to learn an awful lot. So I do suggest you have a look there. For those of you that are listening, make sure that you leave us some feedback and a subscribe on the YouTube. We really appreciate you listening to the Accommodation Show, and we'll catch you again next week.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bart.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye-bye.